We're all comrades in arms here. In the 50s and 60s, you know, comrades gave you the impression that there's communist involvement. And back then we were all so worried about the communists, you know, we were building all the arms to keep the communists out. And so what do we find today? We've got Chairman Harper signing trade deals with the communists and giving away our Canadian sovereignty to the communists. Not Canadians, but the oil corporations, the 1%.
I was a commercial fisherman for 40 years. I'm also a licensed skipper for what that's worth. And I fished the waters around Douglas Channel quite a bit in my lifetime. And take a super tanker through there, not on your life.
It's not oil, it's bitumen. And there's a huge difference between oil and bitumen. Bitumen is filled with acids, abrasives, and corrosive material that eats through pipelines. I was talking to a pipeline expert. He told me that these pipelines leak all the time. They just wear away from that bitumen. It's just the worst material you could imagine to try to move through a pipeline. And many people don't realize this, but they have to import condensate from Asia and mix it 1/3 condensate to 2/3 tar or bitumen to get it to flow. And that's not even enough. They have to heat that bitumen to make it flow. They heat it to 20 degrees Celsius to move it through the pipeline.
We know that the tar sands are poisoning the people, they're poisoning the air, they're poisoning the water. We know it's the dirtiest ever anywhere, and it is corrosive, and when it spills, it's the worst kind of spill we can have. They are planning $40 billion worth of pipelines over the next 5 years to go west, to go east, and to go south to take the bitumen from the tar sands to export in other countries.
What would happen if those companies took that $40 billion and put it into the development of an alternate and sustainable form of energy?
These pipelines are going to go over hundreds and hundreds of lakes and rivers. They're going to tankers that are where the waves are biggest, one of the most dangerous places for these tankers to be. There will be spills. There have been 6,500 spills in Alberta alone in the last 20 years.
Bitumen doesn't float like oil. Bitumen sinks, and the condensate that's with it evaporates into the air and makes people sick. That's what happened in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Hundreds and hundreds of people were sickened by that spill, and they still haven't cleaned it up. And you know what Enbridge did? They just basically tried to cover up the spill. They didn't clean it up. It's still a mess down there.
Stephen Harper and the federal government are dismantling decades of environmental regulations. They've gutted the Fisheries Act. They've gutted the Navigational Waters Act. They're going to allow pipelines to traverse any waterway in Canada. They've gutted the scientists, and they've cut massive numbers of people at Environment Canada, at Parks Canada, at Department of Fisheries and Oceans. The Department of Fisheries and Oceans are saying now they admit they can't even perform their duty to do an environmental assessment on the proposed Gateway pipeline because there aren't enough of them anymore. They've just all been fired. At the same time, they're negotiating free trade agreements with countries to allow their corporations to come in and have enormous power over our energy policy. This is absolutely unacceptable. We have to work with the people fighting the fracking pipelines as well, because that's another whole threat. We're now calling this area the carbon corridor because of what is being planned here. If the tar sands are allowed to expand the way they're planning now, they will become the greatest site of greenhouse gas emissions in the world. This is not the way to build a future for our children and our grandchildren, and it is an embarrassing and shaming heritage for Canadians. So we're here, we're speaking out in 63 communities today here in British Columbia. We had a fabulous rally on Monday in Victoria with between 4,000 and 5,000 people, many hundreds of whom were prepared to risk arrest if necessary. 50 municipalities, 132 First Nations communities, and the vast majority of British Columbians have said, we don't want you in our territory. And they're saying to the oil companies, most of them, by the way, foreign owned, we don't want you here, we don't want the oil. This belongs to us. It does not belong to the corporations of the world. It doesn't belong to Stephen Harper. We'll be dealing with this devastation years after he's left office. So the answer for all of us is to stay strong, to defend our coast, to say no to the pipelines, no to tankers, and to say to these energy companies, when they come to our territories, you will not pass. Thank you.
Do you realize that 50% of our oil in Canada is imported?
Right now, they have a pipeline that runs across the west side of the proposed pit. They want to double a pipeline through that area. They want to put their major conveyor belt on top of the existing pipeline, and then they want to subject it to 200,000 tons of blasting every single day for 23 years. How rational is that?
Folks here from Spence's Bridge, Savannah, Ashcroft, all over the place. People coming together like this and making a single voice about an incredibly important issue. Fantastic.
We'll stop it at the border, won't we? How many people would be willing to lay down in front of a bulldozer? Yeah! All right!
They're willing to put a price tag on that beauty and that wilderness out there. It's pretty despicable and pretty disrespectful. Kind of hurts a little that they're willing to destroy such a beautiful thing like that just for a few extra bucks.
And some of you are here because of Lead Now. And basically Lead Now keeps you informed over the internet and gives you the ability to sign petitions that help make a difference.
With our future, we're trying to sell our country out through the pipeline. We're trying with our future, we're trying to sell our country out through the pipeline.
No pipeline, no tankers, no problem.
Trying to sell our country out through the pipeline.